wonder who that was. Better not have been David S. Pumpkins. Hate that guy. Anyway, welcome back. This is Scott here at the Guilty Pleasure Cinema, celebrating the movies you're embarrassed to love. Been a while. It is Halloween, as you can clearly tell. There's a lot of craziness going on outside. I don't quite know what's happening, but I guess that's kind of what happens when you leave off. I mean, obviously, when you review Batman and Superman movies, a trilogy of sorts, if you will, and kind of leave off after that while trying to search for your missing dad. Been kind of preoccupied, trying to find things. That, though, has got me a little worried, and it's got me thinking that it's time for a guide. Not quite this. I mean, well, there's options, but what I think it's time for, with all that going on out there, it's time for Scott's Guide to... Wait, no, sorry. Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. Except I couldn't find a copy. Yeah. Seems with all that going on, all the craziness, people have decided to kind of find it. It's found its audience, and people are actually seeking the thing out and need it. Makes sense. Now, as always, I've been searching as well, looking for the right things. I'm a step ahead of everything in some ways, but not in the way I wanted, and I don't have a copy of Scout's Guide. But I did do some researching. I did find things about ghosts, and it led me to other guides. I mean, this is one thing. This one's probably the one I'm going to have to use more so than the rest. I think this is going to be the key to what I need. But also, there were some aliens that were resurging. There was a lot of magic. There were more mutants and some secrets of ooze. I'll have to tell you about it sometime. Trust me, it's interesting stuff. But what we need to focus on right now is the Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse. Okay, so Tobin's Spirit Guide, stance, yes, Tobin. The Necronomicon Ex Mortis can cause the dead to rise. It's not my fault. I mean, I didn't knowingly even read anything out of this. That's how it works in the movies, right? You have to say it out loud, and it becomes real because that's how you did it. I didn't do anything like that. It couldn't be anything of that sort. I mean, it's got to be something bigger, right? And I mean, it's Death. I've met Death. She's great. She has got to be preoccupied with something bigger than whatever is in that old book that is kind of rotting and smells funny. I mean, at least her dog stopped by. He's hanging out outside, kind of keeping things at bay, so it's not all bad. Okay, so anyway, what is the Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse? It's an oft-delayed movie that was really just kind of known as Scouts versus Zombies for a fair bit, and that's the concept. I've just told you the idea, origin, and reason behind the whole thing. Now, that's to belittle the work ethic that went into it to make a motion picture. Trust me, I know. But that's a base concept if there ever was one. Sometimes that's all you need and you can have fun with a great concept like that. And this one does. This knows what it's doing. But it's a little out of reach with where it wants to get to. Most things do start out with that basic hook, like Scouts versus Zombies, Cowboys versus Aliens, reviewing guilty pleasures. You get the idea. There is definitely some fun stuff here. You get exactly what you expect out of this when it's called Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, but is really Scouts versus Zombies. You get everything you'd anticipate out of that. But also, it goes down that path and you get everything you anticipate. However, the good ones can often go a little beyond that. And it does what you'd hope as well, and has a few surprises for you also. The main difference here compared to other zombie movies really is the fact that animals are affected. And all I'll say to go down that path is at one point they have to go into a house of the neighbor, which is a crazy cat lady. I'll leave it at that. All too often, though, we get this sort of concept that either under-delivers or just delivers and leaves you wanting. This is a little itty-bitty movie, and sometimes these concepts are well beyond the budget. Kind of seemed that way here. really had a small budget for what it needed and was aiming for. And yeah, you can get creative where you have movies where they're forced and hand-tied by the budget and they can pull off some impressive stuff. And this one does toward the end, but at that point it's really too little too late. And the worst offense here for the whole thing is just how mean-spirited it is. For a movie that's trying to be big, silly fun of scouts versus zombies in Scout's Guide to the Zombie Apocalypse, this thing is so cruel in ways to everybody, so I guess that's even, but it's trying to be jovial at the same time. It really undercuts a lot of the whole point of why we're here, because the movie's supposed to be fun, but it falls into the tropes of some of those 90s and 2000s horror movies where you don't care about the characters that you're supposed to care about, and instead care about the slashers. Except there's none of those here. They're mindless zombies, so you're left kind of going, eh. Now that really hurts when you take a concept and stretch it to 90 minutes. Not saying an hour would have been okay either, but it really seems like there should have been more fleshing out of this. Pun not intended. The cast, though, mean-spirited as the entire proceedings seem to be, the cast does do what they can to try to make this thing work. Ty Sheridan, young Cyclops, he's arguably our lead. He's the lead scout. He's trying to basically get out of scouts. He's not into it anymore. He doesn't care for it. He's good at it, and his friends want him to stay at it, but he's done with it. And as an actor, I noticed this in X-Men Apocalypse as well. Ty Sheridan, I find, kind of has a look of disinterest about him. And yet that works well here, because he's not interested. He doesn't really care. Just something about the way he looks is kind of... That said, his scout buddies... one of them doesn't even have a Wikipedia page, as far as I could tell. They're just there, but they do well. Like, you believe them. You really do. And they actually go the full gamut of being this kind of character trope that encounters this type of thing and goes down that path. They do what you expect and play it out and then move on. Big important thing there. The real only other person you'd probably recognize is the scout leader himself. His name is David Koechner, and you're looking at this picture, you probably recognize him, and we'll move on. There's also the girl that Psych likes, and some other girls they encounter as well. But really the other main actor involved here is the bully the girl is with and that beats up on Cyclops, him. It's the son of Schwarzenegger. Yes, Patrick Schwarzenegger, in... I don't know how many roles he's had before this, but not many, because I went, his son is acting now. This is interesting, because he plays the bully, and it's similar, I guess, to some of Arnold's earliest roles, where it's just this, that, and anything. And it's a completely tiny movie, different from anything Arnold used to do. He's done smaller movies now, but it's completely separate from everything you'd expect from Arnold Schwarzenegger Jr., if you put it that way. That's good. That means this kid's trying to actually do different stuff, establish a different career, and forge his own path, different from what his dad did with the name Schwarzenegger. You can only go so far with that, so kudos to him for that. Here's some more distancing from the norm. Paramount went with a limited release, where once it dropped below 300 theaters, it's available on video on demand 17 days later, with revenue sharing to boot, if that happened within 90 days. Loads of major chains hated that, so only opened up in about 1,300 theaters. Normally, big things open in 3,000 to 4,000, so you can tell it's already on the low scale of things. When this opened, it was like 1.8 million. My box officer bits are coming to fruition here. But the same thing with all that is it totaled out under 4 million. That's horrendous for a studio movie. And it is, even though it's a tiny. It's released by Paramount, and it's bad. It's no Gem and the Hologram's bad, but it's pretty frickin' close. And that's a shame, because this movie came out and was a lot of fun. But here's the problem. It's not one of those ones that's really underdeservedly seen and needs to be seen more to be appreciated, but it's also not one that really deserves to have been underseen. There's no reason this shouldn't have opened wide for a $10 million total. Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, for example. It really should be in that range. And yet just kind of was part of this weird experiment along with Paranormal Activity, The Ghost Dimension, and flittered around in single-digit millions and everyone kind of looked and went, well, it's not opening everywhere, and it's making no money. It must not be good. Wrong. But that's the perception, and we need to remember that. Now, people were all clamoring that this is going to be the new thing. We're going to get movies day and date with theater and home stuff. Netflix is looking at that, and we've got other ones doing this super ticket type stuff of early digital releases and bypassing DVD altogether and just going to VOD, and they're both correct and insane, because that stuff's been happening for years. We've got the artsiest of art films. We've got WWE stuff with Fox and Lionsgate going for theaters for a week and then going to VOD. Even the new Batman animated movies are going to be in theaters for a day and then get released that week. It's a glorified trailer to say, hey, look, here's a thing. This is a cool thing. We want to get this awareness out there. Come buy it over here. This is where it all comes in. That's what they're trying to do. And that's what they tried with this. It was an experiment. It didn't work at all. And 2 movies suffered for that. You had a franchise low for Paranormal Activity, which killed Saw. And you had this thing, which was kind of trying to replace everything and just be a fun, goofy, silly movie, and just fell through every crack possible. I'm lucky I got to see it in theaters when I did. But overall, this movie deserves better, but doesn't really deserve all that much more. It's not one of those ones like a Dog Soldiers, where I was praising it to the hills. Or things like Tremors even, where people are like, oh, you haven't seen Tremors? You gotta watch Tremors. Or even called things like Rocky Horror, which I personally don't like, but it's got a life well beyond what it originally was intended for. This movie really just got hamstrung out of the gate. People didn't see it, and there you go. It's a shame, because it really deserved a full theatrically released audience level of viewability, and that's about it, because people who saw it and liked it would enjoy it, and anything else, Best example I could think of is probably like American Ultra. I quite enjoyed that movie, but it's not for everyone, but they released it everywhere, so at least people can try to find it and check it out. Made about 14 to 20 million, and there you go. That's kind of what this feels like it should have been. It's not for everyone. I mean, it's Scouts versus Zombies, basic concept, everyone can get on board. If you like it, you're good. But the idea behind all of that was, we know this thing's not going to make a lot of money theatrically. We're going to get our ass kicked. Let's just put it out there and then focus on DVD and video. And it backfired horrendously. Now, I don't know the numbers on that. I know it did do rather well rental-wise. I don't know what happened to that revenue sharing. I don't know how long it was in theaters, but it wasn't here long, and it can't have been elsewhere very long either. It wasn't greatly reviewed. Like I said, it made sub 4 million lifetime, about 10 international, around the world. I think it cost at least that much. Oh no. So basically, to conclude this out, it's found a bit of an audience now, not the audience it deserves, not the audience it needs, but an audience that was interested and probably couldn't get its hands on it originally, and anyone that likes goofy titles of things like Scout's Guide at the Zombie Apocalypse. Makes sense. It doesn't deserve any super higher praise beyond, but does deserve to be seen more than it was. It's just not going to be championed by many who do. So why am I talking about it? Well, because this movie absolutely deserves to be seen if it is your thing. And I'm hoping, as a purveyor of guilty pleasures and celebrating the movies you're embarrassed to love, that you will actually like this thing and want to check it out. I cannot not recommend it. It's a fun one with friends. That's how I saw it in the theater. I absolutely enjoyed it. We all laughed. There's raunchy stuff, which is like it's like Hangover with zombies in its own way. The Scouts vs. Zombies is really a third act finale, which is a shame. It really could have done a lot more of that sooner, so that's that problem with it. But overall, I don't regret seeing it. I enjoyed it in the theater. I did not mind paying it all, and I want to own it. I want to own a lot of movies, but that's definitely one in there. So how's that for your recommendation? Fair enough? Next up, we're going to focus on things with Christmas and the anniversary coming up for the 5th year in 2017. That's some crazy stuff going on, so I got to figure out what happened to Death and talk to her about what the heck is happening out there. At least her dog stopped by. That's handy. And really, just remember, you shouldn't feel guilty about it if it's a movie you love. Even if it's one that you don't really love. that hurts when you have a concept. Laundry's done.